Last time, I left you with a confession and a bit of a cliffhanger. I told you how I set up a project to fail. No real team, no closure, work assigned but never owned. And then I said, none of that is what actually killed it. All of that just made it fragile. What killed it was one more mistake, and it's the one I most want you to remember. Here it is. How do you actually know whether a commitment is real? Not just words, because your team will tell you they've committed. Most of them will mean it, and a bunch of them will still be wrong. Not lying, just bad at predicting whether they'll really get behind a decision they quietly disagreed with. Yes is cheap, so yes is not evidence. But then what is? Here is the part of the Intel story nobody quotes, and it is the most valuable thing in it. Months before that famous conversation between Moore and Grove, before the speeches, before the plant closures, the pivot had already started without anyone deciding it. Down on the factory floor, Intel's middle managers were quietly moving production capacity away from the dying memory chips toward microprocessors. They couldn't change strategy, but they could decide what got built this week. And step by step, they moved the whole company before the company decided to move. Think about that. The official signal, the strategy, the speeches, lagged reality by nearly a year. But the honest signal, where the machines and the money were actually going, had been telling the truth the entire time. That's verification. It isn't asking people if they were committed, it's reading the one signal that can't be faked. Where the resources actually go. Time, money, headcount, your best people, the calendar. Talk is free, so it's worthless as evidence. Resources cost something, so they're the one place commitment can't hide. Now here's what it looks like when you ignore that signal, which is exactly what I did. On my project, I read no signal at all. People said yes, and I let "they said yes" stand in for "they're doing it." And then I waited 2-3 weeks for the next meeting to tell me where things stood. And every time, every meeting became a graveyard of excuses. By the time I found out a piece was stuck, it had been stuck for weeks. And the thing behind it was already late too. I was always finding out at the exact moment it was too late to fix. And the team learned something about me from that. That nothing was really checked. That a missed commitment cost nothing. That the project leader found out last. Once they learned that, the project stopped being real. And so did I. It died in disgrace, and I'd handed it the knife by never looking. The work hadn't been moving since week 1. The signal was right there. I watched the wrong dial. One warning, because this is where managers easily overcorrect. The second you say, watch where the resources go, some people here spy on your team. Catch them out. That's wrong, and it backfires. It just teaches people to hide the signal. Don't go to surveillance, elevate to signal literacy. Surveillance looks for someone to blame and produces concealment. Signal literacy looks for what the system is telling you and produces a quiet early course correction. So when your best person is still spending most of her week on the thing you supposedly killed, don't ask, "Why are you defying me?" Ask, "What does she understand about the cost of this switch that I missed?" Sometimes a misallocated resource is resistance. Sometimes it is the smartest person in the building spotting a flaw you couldn't. You only find out by asking. Intel's pivot took about 3 years. Andy Grove called it a long, torturous struggle. Not some heroic moment, but the resources committed before the words did. And once he forced the strategy to catch up with where they were already heading, it held. By 1992, Intel was the biggest semiconductor company in the world. My project, however, went the other way. Same ingredients, talent, budget, mandate. The difference was Intel read the honest signal. I waited for a meeting. So, 5 phases. Make it safe to tell the truth. Hear every objection. Own the decision making and close. Commit out loud and make it cost you. And then stop listening to yes and read where the resources actually flow. That's disagree and commit. Not a phrase you say to win an argument. 5 phases of real work. If you want to run a live version of this with your own team on a real decision that has been challenging you, that's exactly what the pivot stage of my program is built to do. Reach out to me if you want to know more. But before you click anything, go look at where your team's resources actually went this week. It's telling you something. I just wanted you to be able to read it before it's too late.